Very good evening to you. If you're just joining us here, we've had a terrific chat about both Manchester United and Arsenal today. Arsenal 5 points clear. It could be 8 if they win their game in hand against Manchester City. And Manchester City winning by 3-0 today. No prizes as to who scored a hat-trick there. Haaland once more really back in form. Leeds United frustrated this afternoon in a 0-0 draw at home to Brentford. Sunderland with a big win against Middlesbrough in the Championship. They've had 3 great wins on the bounce now. And up in Scotland, Hearts beat Hibs by 3-0. And in the last 16, Rangers will be up against Partick Thistle in that cup. Well, Everton's manager was quoted yesterday, Frank Lampard, of saying, look, I don't fear the sack or anything. Why should he? He's done just about everything in football. But at the moment, he is struggling to get a tune out of his Everton side. It's his longest winless run. It goes back to October. 6 defeats, just the 2 draws and 2 points at the moment. It leaves them stuck in 19th position. They're not out of it by any means. Nobody's got detached from the bottom 7 or 8 sides. There's no doubt about that, but there's still an awful long way to go. But Everton has been a very difficult case, and certainly some of the behaviour from the fans are not the true fans. It cannot be, but certainly it's been really difficult at Goodison Park recently. Dave Johnson is Everton blogger for Falcon Blues TV, and Dominic King, the Northern football correspondent, and already, of course, a firm Sunday night clubber. Glad to say that both of them will back with me now. If I could come to you first of all, Dave, and a very good evening to you, and thank you very much indeed for joining us as well. Just the thoughts, you know, when you hear what I say there. You know, Frank Lampard hasn't had a win with Everton since October. The relegation battle, the 6 defeats, doesn't seem to look as if they've got any way of getting out of that run. Knocked out of the Carabao Cup, knocked out of the FA Cup, of course, at the 3rd round stage as well. It is bleak.
You said it. That's exactly how it is, Mark. It's just a pretty demoralising time for all Evertonians, you know, not just with the results on the pitch, but, you know, just everything that's going on within the entire Everton world, really. The issues with the board, the issues with board members, the team itself, the manager. At the moment, fans really just don't know which way to turn, and it's just becoming a bit of a struggle. And you can understand why people are getting pretty upset over things. And at the moment, there just doesn't seem to be that way out of the situation.
So when you speak to and hear from Everton fans, what is their real main beef, gripes at the moment?
Like I said, it's a handful of everything, but predominantly now it's just the way that the club has been handled over the last 5 years since Farhad Moshiri took over. Yes, we know that there's been an influx of money into the club over the last 5 years, the new stadium and everything else, but it's the whole thing of, well, the money hasn't really put us in any kind of position where we should be fighting for cups or, you know, Champions League spot, Europa League places, that kind of thing. It's just, we've literally come about face now. And I literally had the same conversation with someone this morning about Rafa Benitez. I had near enough the same conversation, saying, listen, we've not won 1 in 13, 1 in 14, whatever it is as of today. Last year we were in the exact same position and struggling. And that is, whether that's down to poor recruitment, poor management, it is just a whole host of different things that's causing it. But I think it's just because of the way the board seem to be a bit not forthcoming with where do you want, what's the direction of the club? Where do you want us to go? Where do you want us to be? What are you doing to push the club further? Because the fans at the moment aren't seeing it. The last 2-3 years, we haven't seen any kind of change, and we're just going around in circles.
You make some really good points there, because Dominic, of course, you will know all about this as well, that those of us that dip in and out away from our own teams that we support, or certainly in the media, and it's been very difficult with the 2 years of COVID and then everything else that's gone in, and the World Cup getting in the way and what have you. So sort of outside of Everton, the people perhaps not realising what has been happening. I understand that Moshiri has sat down and talked to Frank Lampard today. Can you confirm any of that?
Yeah, there have been discussions. I think Bill Kenwright's been involved with it. All the board members have been involved today. But Dave's just articulated everything superbly about the frustrations. I've never known a period like it in terms of my mates who are season ticket holders and people around the city. That just the last week in particular, and how the fans have been portrayed in some parts. Real, honest, match-going people who love the club, who know football. The way they've been portrayed as being kind of the problem has been a joke, really. The fans have been through the mill for the last 5 years in particular, with the chopping and changing, and some of the performances and results that just are an affront, really, to the effort and the emotion that they put into it every week. It really is demoralising. And look, Frank's been in the game long enough. He knows that you can't withstand a run of 11 defeats now in 14 matches in all competitions. There's only one way this situation is ending for him. But again, I mean, yes, he's probably made mistakes at times, but he's had one window. He's lost his best forward last summer. He hasn't been able to replace it, and this constant downgrading of players. Every time Everton have sold a player, they haven't brought in quality as an upgrade, and that's the reason why they're in this position.
I think that, Dominic, what you said, I'll stay with you on this one and then come back, if I may, to you as well, Dave, is that this goes back a long way, as Dave was saying. You know, we look at 5 seasons, we look when TalkSport, and I've come to many games at Goodison Park, and I remember a few years ago when Tom Davies was really beginning to show what he could do, and others were really playing well. You had Lukaku, of course, at the top of his form, some real quality in that side. And then it's all sort of drifted away, as you say, not having been replaced, and you just can't keep getting away with that. And I also wonder, when you have owners who've come in like this from outside, as to exactly what they really care about or not. And it's just so many stories like this we're going to hear about and see about, perhaps not always at the Premier League level, but at other levels now, where you have got to continually, for your managers, whether it's an Ancelotti or whether it is a Frank Lampard, whether it was Rafa Benitez, you know, there's no excuse here for the board in a way, because, you know, before even Frank Lampard, who's still a young, inexperienced manager in many ways, are two of the best in the world before at the club that couldn't get a tune out of anybody.
Well, exactly. I mean, I remember the day Farhad Moshiri was last at Goodison, when they got beaten 5-2 by Watford in October 2021, and there were a number of. Even then, there was discord, and that was because Rafa Benitez was manager. It was that was never ever an appointment that was going to work. Unfortunately, with Rafa's CV, there was just too much. There was too much noise around it for it ever to sort of get anywhere. And I remember being in the press box when Moshiri was leaving, and Denise Barrett-Baxendale was leaving, and Marcel Brands, who was the sporting director at the time. And I remember people voicing their displeasure to him, and it was almost like that was the sort of moment where he probably washed his hands. He's been missing ever since until yesterday, and then he's obviously he was doorstepped yesterday coming out of the stadium and gave a very cryptic answer about I don't make the decisions about the manager. Yeah. Well, he quite clearly does. Yeah. And it's disingenuous to suggest otherwise. Yeah. It's no, it's just, as I said, it's an absolutely miserable situation.
And I think as well that the points made by Dominic there, Dave, is that, yes, the Moshiris of this world, he doesn't know football in this country. He may well have come in and obviously made his money elsewhere and done other things or whatever else he's done. They're all mystery men. They don't understand the heart. This isn't the franchises that all the Americans know in the States. This is the heart of cities and towns that are then played with by these so-called multimillionaires who don't actually in the end put all of their money where their mouth is.
No, you're right. But in the end, the Premier League is one of the richest businesses in the world. That's exactly what it is. It's a business first and foremost. Yeah, it means everything to the city, the town, its community, and whatever. But ultimately, the club is there to make money, and to do that, you need to be successful in the league.
Yeah.
So, I get the beginning of having, when Fahad Mashidi come in, he's brought in Bill Kenwright. He's kept him in as just as a backstop, really, to say, listen, I probably don't know much about football, but I want you to help me. But at that point, it should have been, okay, well, here it is for the next 6 months. Bill is in my pocket. I'm going to listen to everything Bill says. And then we are going to look at a restructure of the club that, one, still relies and looks after the community the way it has done with Everton in the community, but also looks at it at a proper business level that, yeah, the club can actually make money. We've got a CEO who is, prior to this, was head of a charity. That is not how you run a football business. You can't do that. The same with Bill Ken right now. He's a millionaire in a billionaire's pond, and unfortunately that time is now gone. Not just at this point, I'm talking 5, 6, 10 years ago, Bill Kenwright should have been gone, really. But now we're looking at it he's still here. We've got a board that's struggling, a board that doesn't know how to make decisions. We've got an owner who now goes, oh, well, the fans made that decision for me. No, we don't, mate. That's your job. We'll tell you if we don't want the manager in, like we did with Rafa Benitez, and you didn't listen to us then. You'd only listen to us when we said we wanted them gone from the club after the poor results. Does this happen in the same situation with Frank Lampard? I think he's waiting for that moment to say, oh, well, the fans don't want him, so I'll just get rid of him. But no, I think the fans are just going to quietly just say, maybe, okay, it's time for Frank Lampard to move on because the results haven't changed. We haven't moved on from the last year. But don't put this on the toes of the fans. The fans are the lifeblood, as you say. It's part of the community and everything. The fans are the lifeblood of this club. But they need us more than we need them.
Dominic, you'll have written about this so many times as well, how some of these owners, and he is the main man now. This is his club, and it's all very well for him to ask Bill Kenwright to stay there and what would he think, and choosing new managers and this sort of thing. If you're not from within the game, you don't always know who to listen to, do you? And I think that whether he's good or bad or whatever's happened, and he's been stay away and everything like that, I think these businessmen from elsewhere, and the Americans are the same, they don't quite know, do they? They just think, it's going to happen because I've been able to make it happen in the businesses I know about.
I think there's one thing that I could probably say that would be universally agreed with, and that's he's been badly advised on a number of occasions by certain people, whether it's been agents that he's listened to get players that have been trying to get players in at certain points, or his directors of football. I mean, he's on his third director of football now in 6 years. I mean, the next time the manager changes, it's going to be the 12th time in 304 games. There's only been 304 games of the Mashiri area, and this is going to be the 12th different time there'll be a change in the dugout, which is just, I find an absolutely extraordinary statistic for the and it perfectly illustrates the instability of it all. No, he's needed good people. He brought Marcel Brands in, and at the time of Marco Silva, and the big dream was to tap into foreign markets, bring in young players, be coached by a young, hungry coach that could nurture them and get Everton playing in a slick way. But as soon as it never worked. It never worked that way. That was never. It never. No. They just never carried on through with it. And Marco was gone within 18 months. His results were bad, but he's not shown himself to be a bad manager at Fulham. So
exactly,
it's just a horrible situation. I feel so desperately sorry for everybody that's going through it. And
just very quickly, a final word from both of you tonight, and it's been great to hear your very honest thoughts on all of this. Dave, I'll come to you first. Is that it's the end game really for Frank Lampard, isn't it? Whatever anybody thinks, he can't continue that dressing room. Whatever it needs something different now. No,
you can't defend the indefensible. It's results speak for themselves in the end. You know, we won one game in 14. That's exactly where we should be. Relegation fodder. And I think, his time is probably up. He's a lovely guy, but he's not good enough for it.
No, and that's a great point that you make. And I think, Dominic, you may well be writing. And let's not forget, there is still a lot of clubs in a little bit of trouble down here that if you're going to act, you've got to do it now.
Yeah, they've got to be decisive. There can't be any more of these situations when there's been managers changed in the past and it's dragged on for 3 or 4 weeks. They need to know what they're doing, because the one thing that Everton are lucky about at the minute is the fact there is 5 or 6 teams that were within reach and can be clawed back, and there is still enough time. But if there's any inertia, if there's any sort of dithering, it's going to be over before they know it.
Dominic, Dave, thank you both very much indeed for joining us tonight. Tony Cottee is going to join us to talk about Everton and West Ham United in the next part of the show. It's the Sunday Night Club. This is Talk TV.